What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. So once again, another iPhone 11 comparison, and this time we're comparing it to probably, in my opinion, one of the best competitors in the Android market right now, which is the Samsung Galaxy S10e. Now, I have the fortunate advantage and blessing of owning both of these phones. And what I can tell you is that, from straight out the gate, from straight up from the beginning of this video, I'm going to tell you there's really like not one phone that completely 100% overshines the other one. Like, I think both of these are tremendous phones and I don't think one of them has like huge problems or anything like that. However, I do think there is a better phone between the two, and I'll kind of break down that and why I think that in a second. But before I get too far into it, bro, I'm still doing my iPhone XR giveaway depending on when you're watching this. If you want to enter that giveaway, all you have to do is click that third or fourth link down in the description. It'll take you to a video. Watch that video in its entirety. It'll explain exactly how to enter. It's super simple. It's completely free. You just got to follow me on a couple places, but watch that video so you can kind of get the full idea. I just want to say thank you to you guys for supporting me and all that. So that's that. Now back to the comparison. Now looking at both of these phones, at least on the front, you can see that there's quite a bit of difference. The iPhone 11, without a doubt, definitely has more bezel on the display on the front than the Samsung Galaxy S10e. On the front of the iPhone 11, we have a 6.1 inch IPS panel. It's 828 by 1792, so not a super low resolution panel, but there is only 326 pixels per inch, which isn't horrible, but it's the same PPI as like an iPhone 8, so it doesn't really make much sense. However, the Samsung Galaxy S10e has a 5.8 inch dynamic AMOLED display, and that one has 438 pixels per inch, and that's also a 1080p display. Now, numbers are one thing, specs are one thing, but I can tell you, dude, when using both of these phones, I can tell the Samsung Galaxy S10e's panel is far better than the iPhone 11's, okay? First of all, the notch, that's one thing. It's always going to be there for at least a minute or two, so I don't know if the next generation is going to have it, but that's something the S10e does not have. I mean, it has that hole punch display. When I'm using the S10e versus when I'm using the iPhone 11, maybe the build quality has something to do with it. I also think the S10e has a better build quality, but that display on the front is so much better than the iPhone 11's. I personally do feel like if Apple put just an OLED display on the iPhone 11 and they kept that same resolution and same PPI, I feel like even then there would still be a lot of competitors and it would still be competing with like a Galaxy S10e or even maybe a Galaxy S10 that's kind of out there. But an OLED display really does have that much effect on your phone. So between these two, the S10e, in my opinion, has a better display and the overall better build quality as well. Now, a huge advantage of the Samsung Galaxy S10e is that headphone jack. That's something really, really cool and not a lot of phones have, at least now in this day and age. So, I think that's a really cool advantage for the S10e. Thankfully, there's IP68 dust and water resistance for both of these phones, so that's super cool. And we have dual camera setups on both of these phones, which I'll get into in a second. The Samsung Galaxy S10e also has a huge advantage of having a micro SD card slot, which the iPhone 11 does not have, and no iPhones are ever going to have it, so kind of keep that in mind. But between these two, that's pretty much it of them on the outside. It kind of already seems like the S10e is the far superior phone out of these two, but don't get it twisted because there's a place in my heart for iPhones as well. And that is actually the software updates. So this is something where, it's talked about to death, but it's super, super important. And that's basically the reason for it. Androids, for some reason, the manufacturers do not support their phones for that long versus Apple, they support their phones for super, super long periods of time. So even for example, the iPhone 4S and iPhone 5, those phones got an update like a couple months ago, and those phones have been unsupported for a super long time. So Apple cares about their phones. Samsung does too. They push updates for the Galaxy S7 for a long time too. The iPhone 11 starts off with iOS 13 and it's going to continue further and further. It's going to go on for a very long time. The Samsung Galaxy S10e is getting started with Android Pie. It's going to get Android 10 and it's probably going to get Android 11, and that's probably going to stop there. I don't think it's going to go further than that. But here's the thing, not only theoretically speaking as of right now is the iPhone 11 going to outlast the Samsung Galaxy S10e, but it's also going to outlast the Galaxy S11e and quite potentially the S12e as well, maybe even more, who knows. So it's pretty crazy. You might be paying the same price now or maybe a little bit more for S10e, but it's pretty crazy the fact how the phone being released at the same time can outlast the other one, kind of competing in the same price range. It's pretty crazy. So in terms of that, the software, the iPhone 11 definitely has the bigger advantage here. But the S10e also has an advantage with custom ROMs, that this isn't necessarily like a stock, support from a manufacturer, but you still have those, capabilities of getting to the next version of Android or getting more and more updates by custom ROMing your device. So not a huge, not a fair advantage, I would say, because iPhones don't have anything like that kind of right now. There is that jailbreak exploit, but I haven't really, heard too much about it since then. So between that, that's pretty much the software update side. Now moving on to the performance side. Now this is interesting because both phones, even though they're the cheaper models of basically all the phones that these manufacturers are creating, they have very, very high amount of, specifications within them that make them super compelling phones. Now, the iPhone 11 has the same Apple A13 Bionic chip as the iPhone 11 Pro Max, which is way more expensive than it, has a hexa-core CPU with 4 gigabytes of RAM. The Samsung Galaxy S10e has the Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 chipset, an octa-core CPU, and Adreno 640 GPU, and depending on the variant you get, you either get 6 gigs of RAM or 8 gigs of RAM. On my specific model, I had 6 gigs of RAM, and what I can tell you is without a doubt, I think both of these phones are very, very fast phones. I think there's really nothing that tells me like, oh my god, the S10e was way faster or the iPhone 11 was way faster. Between both of these, I think it's like split. They're very, very fast phones. One thing I will tell you though is that I do believe with the Samsung Galaxy S10e, app opening speeds were a little bit faster when I was using them. I could definitely tell. I mean, the iPhone 11 isn't slow either, but with the S10e, for now, from like the fresh boot up and when I was using it, it's definitely, a pretty fast phone, a pretty speedy phone at that, especially when you come to opening apps. The iPhone 11 is kind of like a mixed bag. I don't think it's like a super like slow device at all. I definitely do think it's, a fast device, but between these two, I definitely do think the app opening speeds were faster on the S10e. But one thing I want to keep you in mind is that throughout time, now I've owned every single iPhone, I've owned every single Samsung, so I kind of have an idea how this works. Throughout time, every single time that I use a Samsung, like let's say an older one like a Galaxy S6 or S7, I notice that the more I use it, the slower it gets. Now that's totally not how it works, but there's a lot to do with that, the cache in the background and background running processes and all that. With the iPhone side, I always felt like, when you pick up like an iPhone 6s, that phone will far outdo you better in performance through the long periods of time rather than like a competitive of the Samsung side or even LG side or whatever. And I think that has a lot to do with the background processes and everything. So it's not just as simple as I make it sound like, oh, over time it gets slower. There's a lot to do with that. But if we're talking like 2 years down the line of two base models of the S10e and iPhone 11, I would probably tell you the iPhone 11 will probably be the faster device over time. But as of right now, from the starting point, I think the S10e currently is the faster one between the two. But again, that's justifiable because in a couple years, I'm pretty sure the iPhone 11 will be the faster one between them. So that kind of covers up the performance side of things. Now, let's go and talk about the cameras. So like I said, they both have kind of the same type of camera setup. They both have wide angle lenses that are 12 megapixels. The iPhone 11 has an ultra wide 12 megapixel lens. The Samsung Galaxy S10e has a 16 megapixel ultra wide sensor, and between the two, they are very, very similar. You can do 4K at up to 60 frames per second. Both of these phones do not have telephoto lenses, so there's really nothing to talk about there. However, one thing I will hit on is that for the iPhone 11, the stock camera app, isn't horrible, okay? It's not bad, but there's just not a lot going through it. And this has always been a problem with iOS, so it's not really an iPhone 11 problem. It's just their software, iOS is just, for some reason, Apple just doesn't want us having all those features in their camera app for some reason. I don't know why. I've always talked about this. So many people complain about it, but, for some reason, they don't want to change it. That's really my only gripe with the iPhone camera. If they just improve that, like, they could just literally have probably the best camera in the game, and that has a lot to do with the software. However, on the Samsung side, they just put all those features onto their app. They don't make you go through different apps to get through different settings or anything. And I love that so much. And, even though, let's just say the quality of the iPhone 11s was better, let's say it took better photos, by default, I would rather have, in my experience, an S10e's camera layout because of the functionalities and the features that you can change straight from the camera app. Now, it seems like a petty thing to talk about or whatever, but I personally do think that has a lot to do with the overall experience of using a phone like that. You don't want to have to go through so many things and be limited on your settings, So like I said, this is a prime example. The quality and, the video quality might be better on an iPhone 11, but the S10e has the better camera software. So it's like, which one do you choose, But I do think that the S10e actually has the better camera quality in my opinion. I don't think the iPhone 11 is bad or anything. It's definitely good, but the S10e I think is the better one in terms of quality. However, I will tell you that the audio recording from the iPhone 11 is far better than the audio recording of the Galaxy S10. S10e. So that's kind of like a catch-22. You can have, one of each thing, but you can't have both of them on a phone, which, it's kind of the dumbest thing, but that's kind of how I would break it down. The iPhone 11 has the better audio quality, and it still takes very, very good quality videos and photos, but the Samsung Galaxy S10e, I think, has a better photo quality and image quality in terms of the photos and videos as well. So now moving on to the battery life, this is also pretty interesting because they both have almost the same size battery. We have a 3110 mAh battery on the iPhone 11 and a 3100 mAh battery on the Samsung Galaxy S10e. And what I can tell you is, from what I've heard and what I've been using with, the battery on the iPhone 11 is very good. It's, pretty much up there with like the iPhone. I wouldn't say up there with 11 Pro Max. I think that one still has a superior battery for my testing, but the iPhone 11's battery is still very, very good. The Galaxy S10e's battery is very good as well for the, for the size, because these aren't like killer phones. These aren't like phones that have like gigantic screens and like the 90 gigabytes of RAM and all that. It's just a very basic, mid-range phone that you should buy if you're on a budget. And what I can tell you is the battery life on both of these, because of the specs within the phones, they're not like killer specs. These batteries are very good and they're going to last you for a long time. Wireless charging on both, so you're going to be set in terms of everything. So what I can tell you is that between these phones, I don't think there's like a huge winner between them, but I do think that, this is going to sound crazy, the Samsung Galaxy S10e actually might be the better phone between them. Like if I had to go out and buy one of these, I would probably buy a Samsung Galaxy S10e. And the reason is the better build quality, the better screen. You have the micro SD card slot as well as a fingerprint sensor if you want it. You have a headphone jack, which I don't really care about, but that might be an advantage to you. And you have a very great camera. But like I said, you can do that same exact thing with the iPhone 11, just minus the headphone jack and fingerprint sensor and micro SD card slot. Like that's already a couple things right there. The iPhone 11 is a tremendous phone still. And it's kind of like 50-50. Even if you pick up a Galaxy S10e, you're still going to be limited in the software updates. You're going to see a lot more depreciation in the used market than an iPhone 11. And I would rather pick up a used Samsung Galaxy S10e than a brand new one of either of these phones. The S10e has depreciated so much since its release. Like you can probably pick one up for like $300, probably less than that, which is pretty crazy for a phone that retailed for, way more than that, and the brand new market just come like March. So that's kind of my opinion on it. I think the iPhone 11 is a tremendous phone. I do think the S10e might be the better one between them, but I don't think you can go wrong with either of these phones. There's still so many advantages for the iPhone 11 as well. So that's kind of how I would break this down. So if you guys have any other questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit that like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it'll mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate it if you guys could check it out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.